Hola, mujeres. Welcome to 2024 with Dos por Latinas.
Bienvenidas al 2024.
So, en el día de hoy estamos aquí con ustedes porque queremos hablar sobre lo que es self-care goals for 2024 specifically. And as you guys know, we're very big on vision boards. And so we're going to remind you again that we hope you already, if you haven't already done it, we hope that you set aside some time this weekend or soon so you can plan for your goals in 2024, and with that maybe add some self-care activities on there
because many have to do with self-care. I know half of mine are like that. And don't think about like, oh, you need this big board, because I was just telling Jana, like Jana did hers digitally on Canva. I did mine. I actually did turn it into a family exercise. It was on New Year's Day, and it was also like wedding anniversary. So we had a little dinner at home. So it was my parents, my husband, and my son. And I just gave each of us 8.5 blank paper, computer paper, and I just put my categories. I named it. I titled my vision board this year is called Believing in Myself. So just that's the goal over everything, like believing in myself for every goal that I do have, what it takes to do that, being consistent. And you'll see that we'll talk more about what our goals are this year on self-care, but many of them have to do with self-care. I'm so excited to share that I have already started on some.
Yeah, so for me, like she said, I do digital boards because the first time I started, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so less time consuming. Although, not gonna lie, if you're very creative and you like to have, your stuff around where you can see it, that's a good way to start. If you're not,
whatever works for you, it's just writing it down, getting on pen,
and put it on somewhere where you can always go back and make sure that you're looking at those goals for the year and actually like taking action on them.
Take it from here to paper.
Exactly. It works. I swear it works. It worked for us. I'm sure it's going to work for you guys. So yeah, we will talk about a little bit about our self-care goals for the year, and maybe that's something that can motivate you and think about your self-care goals for the year. And for me, we were just talking about this like right before
we always do this. We have a pre-conversation. You know how people have a meeting before the meeting, we have our conversation before recording our conversation.
And one of the things we were talking about, I was just telling Rossi, like, well, before, and we always say this to you guys, and we even said it in one of our episodes when we brought in one of our mental health, my sister, she's a therapist. Shout out to my sister. She talked about self-care, and she mentioned in that episode that self-care, and we've said it all the time, that self-care looks different for everybody, right?
And different stages in your life.
Exactly. So at this stage in my life, personally, and almost going on 34 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Everything, when you're after 30, everything pretty much hurts. And I think you have to take care of your body a little more than like in your 20s, especially after you have children. So some of my goals this year for self-care is to focus on my health mentally, but also physically. And when I say physically, it doesn't have to be, even though, I want to be active and I want to exercise and I continue to, make sure that I do those things. When I say physically, it's more about like in being in tune with my body and making sure that I'm giving it everything that it needs. So maybe picking up again, because I know some of you know that I used to do acupuncture before I got pregnant with my second and during my pregnancy. And that helped so much while I was pregnant. But acupuncture is not only for like pregnancy, right? Like you can do acupuncture for so many other reasons. And we also have an episode about that.
Yes. I even sent my mom there after we interviewed Rebecca Davina.
So we do. I just wanted to put in a plug for that too. We do have an episode for that. But I just want to go back and pick up acupuncture for other purposes, right? Like I want to be able to just like distress, and that's something that acupuncture offers. I want to be able to go back to the chiropractor and make sure that like my body's aligned and my bones are aligned, and I just feel a lot more better. I want to be able to go and get a massage just so that I can feel, like less stressed out. And then I also want to continue to do a lot more or focus on meditation so that I'm able to be more patient overall, not just like with my family, but just like in general, because we have to work with people a lot. And I feel like that's important,
Even with
right?
ourselves being
Yeah,
patient.
exactly. Because I
Yeah.
know totally different topic, but her and I were having a conversation this past, I don't know, the past couple of days about, and she posted about this, giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
And I did say to her, like, hey, you know what? Like, it takes a lot, but just, go back, say what you need to say to your kids, and just trust that at some point it'll happen. But, just follow, just continue to do what you do on that normal because they're kids at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And we just have to, like sometimes you just have to let it go and go with the flow,
Yeah.
honestly.
I
And
told her,
so
I know I gotta give myself grace, and then
yeah, and then it takes patience, right? Because you may not be patient enough to like put up with that stuff and like
mhm.
your kids. So all of that, we want to make sure that like we, at least personally, I want to make sure that I am, getting my body to and my
In sync
mental
with your
health.
mind, body, and soul.
Exactly.
Como te dije ahorita.
Exactly. So that's where I am, the stage in life where I am as far as like self-care goals this year. So what about you, Rosie? I want to know more about what you're thinking.
So the first one I wrote down was like, hey, health. And my dad always reminds me, he's like, why are you always thinking that you gotta do this, do that? You work for a freaking health and wellness company. And I'm like, you're right. He's like, you represent the company, so you better get into shape. You better start doing more body movement, eating well. So to me, what I have on there is at least working out 2 to 4 times a week, being consistent, because I have the tools at my house. I just never make the time. I just leave it till the end. So being more intentional that when I wake up is doing that and making myself a priority, because it's like, yeah, I gotta make breakfast for my husband, but then if I start doing that, then el tiempo se va, and then what about me? Um, Another thing is eating more and choosing my eating habits a lot more intentionally. So I want to share that when in working for a health and wellness company came in clutch, because we started a 12-day challenge to clean our gut, and I just finished yesterday. And yes, I did lose 8 pounds. Of course, I'll probably gain it back right away because I'm not gonna keep the same thing.
You're putting the work though,
The
so
goal was to clean my gut, and I learned like, hey, I was taking my greens in the morning, drinking protein, and then probiotic at night, which I would take probiotic, but for some reason I didn't know I had to take it at night before bed. I didn't know that.
okay.
And also don't drink anything hot because it kills it. And I was just proud of myself. Like one morning, I sent you a picture. I was like, look at I was at Target. I dropped off my son at
Her little
school.
grocery pull.
I had never ate the 22 grain bread, which I see my dad making those meal
That's what we
choices,
buy.
but I don't. Like I would like yo digo, like I'm just not buying bread. But then if I do, I would just get like the bread, like
Regular
and
white.
no, like I don't buy sliced bread. I get the one the carniceria makes. Yes.
The Dominican
Like,
one.
yes. It's like at my parents' store. Like it's recién salido, calientico. Like I can't
Yeah, it's
resist.
really good. It's really
And
good.
I be
I don't
telling
blame
them,
you.
like, I don't want it crunchy. Sácamelo ahora. And then like, okay, the struggle is real. It's right there. Um, and I was on my dad pictures like, oh look, this is what I ate for breakfast. Like as I was saying, I'm skipping breakfast. Like I'm not eating a lot. Like I don't eat a lot. But he's like, yeah, but if you don't eat a lot, is what are you eating when you actually eat?
Right.
So it's been really helpful to me. Like, oh, I'm buying a lot more fruits. Like I would snack a lot of what my kids are snacking, which I'm trying to teach them to. Like a snack can mean a carrot sticks or fruit. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be something from the pantry,
Hmm.
or just looking into. Um, I'm going sideways, but I got a little bit passionate. But just to inspire you, that just finding accountability. Another thing is I was telling Jatna is when we're talking about investing in ourselves. So that was an investment, like yeah, you gotta spend a little bit more money when you're going out there grocery shopping because you're buying more organics and like the almond butter instead of just like the Skippy
Regular.
peanut butter y
Yeah.
cosas así. Um, is investing in a business. I would say like a business coach. Started doing that recently as well, just because I've always had the goal to help people like start their own businesses. Jana knows I'm passionate about that.
Mhm.
And also growing up around entrepreneurs and being entrepreneur life, working with entrepreneurs. My husband's entrepreneur, so you kind of get the point. And another one's on the whole self-care is also investing in the podcast, because I would beat myself up a lot like, hey, we've been doing this now as of January 19th,
It's our fourth.
fourth year anniversary. January 19th, 2020, we dropped our first episode, went live, and I was just like, wow, it's been 4 years. And yes, we've done a lot. We have let life get in the way. But one of the things for me to feel like accomplished is like, hey, going more all in, be more intentional and strategic with the podcast. So
Yeah.
as you can see, like I went from health into like personal into podcast. All of that to me is self-care, because it all depends on what does my mind need in order for me to feel well. Like if I were like my son, like he was like, "Mommy, let's work out together." That was last Saturday, and I called my dad, like, "Hey, Dad, you work out on Saturdays. We're working out too." So it's like I always say, like, if I when I see that I am interacting with my kids better, I'm happier, I have more energy to play with them. I know that I'm giving myself self care. So I know that after I go back, every time I come here and record with Jana, like I go back excited home, and I tell my son, like, hey, I recorded about this and we talked about that. Like all of that to me shows that I'm filling my cup. So
And I like that you mentioned like all those different categories, and that even though they were different categories, like health and
mhm,
personal, they meant that they were self care items for her, like actionable items,
mhm,
and you can still be able, you can still do that. Like while I focus my self care on like these are the that bucket, and these are the things that I'm doing for myself as a person, to feel better, to be able to help my family, to just be able to like I don't know, work better with other people, and just like be myself and be more present. Having that that time for myself. Rosie mentioned that like the podcast, and like and that's still self care for her. For me, when I did that, I do have the podcast as being one of my things that like okay, we want to elevate it, we want to be intentional and everything she mentioned. But for me, that was in a different category. So again, like it's different for everyone, but it's still something that it's basically
it's
taking
what's
care of.
your need?
Yeah, it's
What's your
your need and
priority,
what's
like for you to feel good about yourself?
exactly. So I hope that that kind of like help you guys understand that like regardless of how you decide to like break it down on your board or like you write it down, whatever you end up doing, still make sure that you're focusing on yourself and that you're actually intentionally putting those thoughts or those pictures or whatever it is, down on paper or somewhere that you can see it, and just actually focus on getting those things done, those activities done, because
Yes.
they're very important in our lives, and that's what's going to help us continue to
Yeah.
actually be able to do things,
Yes.
because if we're not taking care of ourselves,
Then
what's going
who
to happen?
will?
Exactly.
Yes. I'm always like catering to my family. Like, what about me? Who's doing something for me? But I'm like, yep, it's up to me. So, Jatna, I know we spoke about vision boards, but if you guys don't know, we also do something called self care boards.
Yes.
So, drop in the comments, do you have a self care board? Do you even know what a self care board is?
And if you
What
don't
is that,
know,
Jatna?
if you don't know, a self-care board is basically similar, very similar to a vision board, where you're only focusing on putting down those items that are specifically based on those actions that you need to do to take care of yourself. So
hmm
there are categories, obviously, for taking care
That
of yourself.
overlap.
That yeah, exactly. Like psychologically, right? Like
hmm
emotional, mental, financial, like all the categories that you would think of that you could put on a that you normally put on a vision board. You can also put actionable items under those just for self care
Yes,
related
ma'am.
goals.
Yes.
So with that, we're not gonna give you a lot of information about that because we
hmm
did we can't talk about this though. We did do a little workshop though,
Yes.
maybe like 2 years ago, maybe,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Nice. Yep.
With a group of Latina women en español sobre autocuidado, so self care.
Yep.
And we were able to actually teach those women about taking care of themselves and like understanding lo que era autocuidado and what it is, what self care means and how to actually put it on, on a board and put that into action and then like, be able to continue that throughout their entire life essentially and
Yeah.
daily,
Just being intentional about it.
exactly, and daily activities. So with
Um,
that and the workshop and being able to do that for other women, we thought that
and women saying like, "Oh my gosh, like I never thought about this." Like, "Oh my gosh, like." And after that, we would get people saying, "I'm actually doing this. Like, it's on my calendar." And I never like people related like John, like I would say, "Oh, I didn't know much about self care," and Jana was like, "Oh yes, I have known about it." But you would be surprised how many people still don't really are
especially Latinas,
intentional,
especially
yes,
Latinas,
with
we
self care.
learned
Because I was
so
one of
much
those.
from that workshop and just seeing that so many of those Latina women did not spend the time to take care of themselves or didn't know that that was a thing at
Hmm.
all. And you've heard like Rosie talk about how she didn't know at first, like, oh, that's something that I have to actually like do. And I mean, now look at her. She's
Like
like,
be intentional.
oh,
I'm talking to you all about it. Like I even ask people now, what's your self care? What does that mean to you? And like, oh, self love. Um, and of course, when we record our guests, we ask them about that. So it's just we became Dos Bo Latinas podcast, Latina empowerment, also with self care empowerment.
yes. So with that, we're not gonna give you a lot of information, but we decided to launch and also for our 4th year anniversary having the podcast
Hmm.
and just because we normally our intention and our intent is to make sure that other women are feeling like themselves uniquely and being bold and empowered and again taking care of themselves, we decided to create a digital self-care course.
Finally, 2 years later.
I'm not gonna
Act-
lie, we have been talking about this for a long time. And
yeah.
like I said, we did have a workshop. Her
Yes.
and I, Rosie and I actually led the workshop 2 years ago. And so we did talk about like, oh, what about if we put it
Yeah,
out
there were
there
over
for
like 60 women there. So
and
it
they
was
loved it. And we said like, hey, something that we should probably do. And we never got around
it
doing
you know
it.
when they say just do it even if it's not perfect?
Right. And this is
It's
the
just
moment. And we
it
decided
starts.
to do
We're
it.
like we're
And
gonna start with the mini course and then we're gonna keep going up from there. But it's just like the more we see that like we were talking a lot about goals lately and wanting to empower people and we're like, okay, but what resources are we putting out there for women besides the podcast that are actually hands on? Because after each episode we leave homework and then it's like, oh my gosh, why don't we have a digital workshop?
yes. So the digital course essentially it's about 45 minutes or so, but technically once you purchase it, and we'll talk about all those details, once you purchase it, it's yours and you can do
Yeah.
anything you want. You can always go
Hmm.
back to it and you can like reflect on it. You can use all the items that like those forms and reflections that we're like sharing with you. You can
Hmm.
use it all the time and leverage it as much as you can, essentially, just with that one time purchase,
Yes.
essentially. So, how do we get to purchase the course, Rosie?
So if you go to our Instagram and click on our link in our bio, you would see self care mini course. And you click on that link and it'll take you right there to purchase and you will have an instant download. That's
Yay!
easy.
It's really not that difficult,
It was
girls
difficult for
and
me to set
guys,
it
I
up
guess.
though, remember? Because I was like, I want to make this easy for people. So we did make sure it was easy for you
So one of the things we were talking about earlier, and I'm just gonna bring this up because Rosie mentioned like, hey, listen, if people spend
guys.
$50, this is like our marketing pitch here. If you spend $50 on that Stanley Cup that out there that I know a lot of you own, I mean, I'm also guilty. I do have one of those. So if you spend money on that $50, then you can buy this course as well. You
Yes.
can invest
Invest in
in
yourself,
yourself
girl.
and
Yes.
actually take care of yourself and look at that course and follow the directions and create your own
Self-care
self-care
board.
board.
And send it to us.
Yes, yes. So once you purchase the
Because
course and you'll see like the
yeah.
instructions and kind of like our videos and everything and guiding you how to do it. We do have homework as usual. So
Yes.
the course has homework.
And when it's a workshop, you're doing a workshop on your own at your own pace. So make sure that you make the time for you, that me time for it. I do mention that in the course. And it's like when I say send it to us, I mean, we want to be able to follow up with you because we know that it's hard to do it on your own. If you're feeling stuck, we want to be there for you. So it's like, hey, we want to cheer you on or lift you up or just, hey, girl, you did that. So we want to be able to just hold you accountable. Because to me, I have noticed that when I have someone holding me accountable, it's a lot easier. Like every time, like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and it's like I feel like we're a living example
Yes.
as being both co-hosts of a podcast because I feel like we've probably been doing it on our own. We would have like been like, okay, peace out.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. But again, simple, super simple. Like Rosie mentioned, just make sure to go to our Dos por Latina account. There's a link on our bio. When you click there, there's going to be a link for the mini course that you can click on, and then it prompts you to, like tells you kind of like the prices, what the price is, and like you can click on it, purchase it, and then you download the link to the course, and then it's all yours. And then you
Yes.
can do whatever you want with it. And I hope it's that you actually leverage it for more than just once, right? That you're
Yeah.
always you get to a routine where every year or every quarter or however many times you want to do
Every
it,
stage of your life, you
you go
update it.
back and you create a board for that stage of your life so that you can
Yes.
take care of yourself as you need, essentially based on those needs at that point in life.
So go check it out. Click on that link in this podcast description and please, please just share the word. Like even if you don't feel that you right now you want to invest in that, share it in your story, share it and via text. Let's start supporting each other also. Just want to put that out there because that also goes a long way.
Yeah. So if you know anybody that would benefit, like if you buy the course and you take it
You
and
want to gift that as a birthday present. You want to gift that as a Valentine's Day present. If you want to gift it as a Mother's Day present, and I could keep going through the year, um, you know, it's really a great tool to
investment.
have.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. So with that, we want to thank you for listening to our episodes and for being part of this community and for being a loyal listener,
Yes.
obviously. And always letting us know, right? That like, oh, that the content that we share with you and we speak about is relatable, or even reaching out to just let us know like, oh, you're interested, like you would want us to talk about a specific topic that we haven't touched on just
Yeah.
yet. We will do it, girl. Like we
Yes.
will find an expert. We'll share our own experiences if we have any experiences related to that topic. And we will put something out there so that you are able to kind of like relate to that and listen to that and share away with anyone else that you think that should be able to listen to
Yes.
that and would help them. So,
And can't wait to see all of your self-care goal boards coming through our DMs.
thank you. Hasta la próxima.
Ciao.